Do you have the resources to protect my child if there was an active shooter in your school?
You harden up the first floors, including the windows.
How did this person was able to get a gun?
What is the background check going to actually show? You know as well as I do.
Yeah,
Let's do the terrorist analogy.
yeah.
If you've never been encountered by law enforcement, you've never been encountered by the IC, the intel community,
You're not going to have any
either
problem.
foreign or domestic, you're not going to show up on any background check.
Or do we think there's more to that? Do we think there's mental health issues in this country? Why is this happening in the United States versus other countries? Why Israel is not having this issue? Why Iraq is not having this issue? Why is it happening here, Jason?
The truth is, bad people will still have access to guns. Always will.
We're talking about this is a family of 4 kids that just lost two parents. To the Black Side Show again. In episode 5, we have a very a tragic episode today. We're talking about the Texas shooting, the school shooting, and we felt this is actually something that we wanted to talk about. So we decided that we want to bring a guest that actually knows what they're talking about. So we decided to bring an expert that had expertise in all different backgrounds. So we would like to talk about our Dr. Piccolo, Jason Piccolo, who's actually former United States Army officer, was deployed to Iraq during the surge in 2006, and also a professor of law enforcement and homeland security and forensics, and has also worked in Border Patrol and the borders of Mexico, San Diego, and have the expertise of doing all kind of different things through his career, a lot of different avenues in his career, which makes him an expert, complete great expert in this topic. Dr. Piccolo, thank you very much for coming last minute in our show. We totally appreciate you coming with us today.
No, I appreciate you having me. It's a really tough topic to talk about. You know, I have 2 kids, so I really do want to jump into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough day, man. Tough. Last 24 hours has been probably the toughest in this country. And I'll tell you this, man. I am totally not into politicizing this event. This is a very tragic event that scared the hell out of people. I think it's scaring every single American with a child in their home. Like, what the hell is happening in our country, bro?
You know, I agree with you. I do not like to politicize things either. And that's kind of one of the reasons I stopped doing mainstream TV a bit ago. And I started doing more of this law enforcement analysis.
Yeah.
You know, I've been on court TV like 60 something times now talking about breaking down police actions and stuff like that. But stuff like this, you should have solutions. You can complain all day long about left, right, or whatever. But you really need to just think about solutions. How are we going to solve the problem? Do laws work? Not so much. Do hardening targets work? Yes. We both know that. We were in Iraq. We know what happens when you put up a hardened target compared to someone that could just walk right in.
I mean, look at it. Like, I feel that this is the time that I really put my politics aside, and I want to really see solutions to the end of this school shooting. What do you think this problem is? Why is it happening in the United States? Israel have guns everywhere. Iraq, where we were, have guns everywhere. But we don't hear much about school shooting. Why is this happening in the United States specifically?
You know, I grew up in the 1980s, graduated in 1991. I'm damn near 50 years old now. We didn't have school shootings growing up. And everybody and anybody had guns. I mean, you used to see people with the guns in the back of their windows. You know, I lived in a small community. You know, Columbine was the first time. Now, does a lot of it have to do with mental health? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is it a lot more access to guns now? I don't know. It seems like everybody is so curious. And the first thing to do is go to the gun. So, you know, the root cause of it really needs to be examined. And there needs to be solutions for that. The only solutions I have are to harden these targets. You know, I was there when our Homeland Security was created. I started out in the Fed in 2000. So I was there through the Border Patrol and the former U.S. Customs as a special agent. And then 9/11 happens. And we create Homeland Security. So we start hardening everywhere. We have a whole Federal Protective Service. Their whole job is to harden federal buildings and federal facilities. And everywhere you go, look at every building around any major city and look at the potted plants. Those aren't really big potted plants. They're to stop VBIDs. So, I mean, we need to start looking at schools at a different perspective as spending our money to harden them.
And that's what I think, man. I am a trained first protection officer. I have done the counterterrorism first protection level too. I understand about protecting buildings and doing the things. I did this in combat. I did this in the MOD checkpoint where I operated. I done this for a living. And it frustrates me to see that what is the cause of the lack of taking actions. And that's what I see. I see there's lack of taking actions because things like that are getting politicized. And that's what really disgusts me the most is that things are getting politicized. Politicians are taking this ride to get what they want through versus really sitting down on the table and figuring out a real solution. This is lives that we are losing. This is our children. This could be our children. This is a scary nightmare that every American is having.
Think about it this way.
Yeah.
Terrorism.
Yeah.
In the 1990s, the big thing was terrorists are going to hit schools, hit parents. You take away parents, you're taking away the economics of this country. Nobody's going to go to school. Everybody's going to stay home with their kids. They're watching their kids. You can't hire your own private security to bring them back and forth. It's just not feasible.
Yeah.
And then look what happens in Russia. What was it? The Chechens that took over the school?
Yeah.
And the same thing. That's what the worry was here. But now you've been having active shooters for 2 decades plus now. How come we're not taking all these resources and hardening up these schools? You know, single point access, big words right now, saying, hey, you know what? You should have one single focus to get into the school. You know, when you took your ATFP school course, they said when you're going to have explosives or anything like that, glass projectiles are going to be the big tough issue. So you want to put the 3M type film on them. You want to, harden up these windows. So what you do with these schools is you harden up the first floors, including the windows. I mean, you could have egress in case there's fire and stuff like that, but really one single point of entry and hire school resource officers. As someone who's been in law enforcement for, 22 plus years, the past 2 years, they've been trying to defund police and they've been removing what they call resource officers. They're the armed officers assigned to schools from so many schools throughout the country. So many of them have lost their SROs. And we need them there, man.
And that's the scary part for me is that this is what the scary part is for me, is that there is no true data, not a true data of how to fix this. There's a true data of how to politicize this, how to take a team, how to really use this to get back on the other aisle. And I think this political division in this country has affected us way too much that to a point that we can't do our job. We can't do what we're good at. We are very limited because every single person has an opinion. And when it comes to this, I think we should put our opinions aside. I have done first protections in Iraq, man. I have seen what needs to be done. And you said it. We need to harden in the windows. We need to work on protection. However, there have been a lot of things going on in the media in the last 24 hours, and it's about the officers and the police were not capable enough to stop it, that they hesitated. And I have seen and noticed this from one political side of the aisle. And what are your thoughts about, even if we have a resource officer, do you think they're going to be trained enough to respond on time? What really happened in this school shooting in Texas? What are the things that the average American need to know?
Well, you don't know what happened inside the school. There are so many conflicting stories right now that, yes, there are hundreds of officers surrounding the school. And from what it sounds like, there was hesitation. You cannot hesitate. I've been through the active shooter.
Yeah.
And you can't hesitate. You have to go in. You take who you got and you go in. Yes, he had 2 assault rifles, but you have to go and you have to engage him.
So the resource officer had 2 assault rifles?
No,
the attacker does. The attacker was.
Mhm.
So what? That's my question. Is what I was confused on. I was trying to find a resource, like a really legit resource. Did the resource officer in the Texas school has a gun? Did he have a gun?
I don't even know. And that's the thing about these SROs. You don't know if they have a gun. My son's school,
I think we
you have
lost your video.
fully sworn.
Oh, we're still recording? Okay, cool. Basically, you believe that we is the resource officer somebody who's supposed to be armed?
It depends on the location too. And that's the thing. Everything is so dependent on what state it is, what locality it is, what county it is.
Yeah.
It's all resource dependent. Like my son's school has a fully sworn regular police officer. He's there, vested up, ready to go all the time. My daughter's school, no.
Wow. That's just interesting. So why is your son's school has an armed guard, but your daughter's school doesn't?
Well, one's elementary and he's middle school. So I think they assume that if anybody's being an active shooter, they're going to be in middle school. But we've learned today it doesn't matter.
So that's what frustrates me, man.
Yeah.
Who are these people that are doing this critical thinking? That they are not thinking, basically. Like, how are they assuming this?
Today. I did a radio show this morning about this.
Yeah.
And I was talking about it this way. My daughter's elementary school doesn't have a crosswalk. Busy area, cars going crazy. I asked to get a crosswalk in there, and they told me 2 years. It's been in development for 2 years already. It's going to be another 2 years. And I kept contacting everybody up the flagpole, all the way up to the state of Virginia. And it still came back to 2 years. Finally, they gave me a speed sign. They put a speed sign up there to slow people down. But think about the bureaucracy. Just to get a crosswalk in there. Can you imagine every school trying to get someone armed, even contracted, to be in place and be trained and good to go? I like how a lot of people say just hire a bunch of vets and give them assault rifles and put them in front of schools. In theory, it sounds like a great problem to have. You have a millions of veterans out there. But the thing is, it's a job. It's great to go out there and have a show of force for a little while, but how long is that going to last? You need to contract this out. You have two. My thought is this. A lot of states, like Pennsylvania, for one of them, has constables. Texas has constables. They serve warrants. They go and do a whole bunch of law enforcement stuff. They're certified police officers and standards and training. Get people who are certified that have had the training, law enforcement. They can make arrests. They can do everything they have to do. And then you also give them specialized training for single person close quarter combat, or whatever you have to do to protect the schools. And then start hire these people, do this. And if you can't do it that way, contract it out and make sure the contractors have in their contract stipulations that they have to have certain training, this and that, and they have to be good to go. Because look, after 9/11, we started TSA. TSA is so broken. You can't have something like that. You can't just be hiring every Tom, Dick, and Harry to go and protect our schools.
True.
And I love veterans. You maybe have a special veteran hiring authority for them, where they go through a streamlined process. They vet them. You make sure that they're good with kids. There's nothing else going on, because it's not just being an SRO. You're not just going to be sitting. You can't just sit in an office all day.
True.
It doesn't work that way.
And I agree with you.
Around.
I think we need somebody who is a trained professional that could train. I think since your expertise will be better to answer this. Since all these school shootings that happened, had the state or the authorities had it trained in how to really respond to school shooting?
Yeah.
So if they had,
but the thing is,
if they
it
had
doesn't trickle down.
Why there's rumors saying that the officers were standing outside of the classroom for a while and did not go in right away? What are your thoughts on that statement?
Well, that's the thing. Is it comes down to it'll never happen to me. And then how are people going to react when issues like this happen? When shooters are there? You should not, I'm going to armchair quarterback this right now and say, if you have U.S. Marshals and everybody and their brother hanging out outside that school while shooting is happening and they have long arms, even if they have their pistol and they didn't go in and engage a shooter, there is something wrong. I don't care if you've been trained in active shooter officially.
Yeah.
You still have basic shooting skills. You still have basic police skills.
Yeah.
You know how to clear a room. Everybody knows how to clear a room if you're in law enforcement.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you need to learn, man.
And that's what confused me is that I kind of really don't want to say like, hey, the story is verified and is true. And I know things get politicized because of the media, and it's disgusting because I want to know the truth. Was really that resource officer not doing his job? Was he really taking his time to get into the room? I was like, if he was there with the gun, going into a room, you had a higher chance. All of us were former military. We know if you're going into the room, you have a higher chance of shooting him first. You had a higher chance of getting that target to take him down and disable him. And the truth is hard because you know what? This could not have happened. And the media could have gotten this story from outside of the school and used it for their own political gain. And I'm sad because there's a lot of lives are lost. And the question is, I was talking to a teacher earlier today. I was working out in the gym, and there was a teacher that I work out with. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to put my opinion somewhere else and ask somebody. It doesn't matter what they think politically. What did you really think as a teacher being in school? And here's what her answer was. She said that she was not comfortable of having a gun. However, she wants to see a strict security of the school, which, what do you think of that as someone who's a former military, former law enforcement officer? You've been in this field. What do you think of that answer, that I want strict security, but I don't want to really have a gun in the school because I don't trust the kids? That's what she said to me.
Not everybody's adept to firing a gun or holding a gun or acting appropriate when they have to use a gun. And then the other thing is you have to have, it's not just the gun, it's the liability that goes with it. And then it goes with, you have to carry that thing all day. You can't just leave it in your desk. You can't leave it in your purse.
Yeah.
You're basically going to be like an armed guard teacher. And it doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way.
You know, there are a lot of armed teachers throughout the country. We know that. And I don't have any problem with that at all, but I can't expect everybody to be armed.
Armed, yeah. It's not the solution.
No, not at all.
It's not the solution. So you're saying basically it's not the solution to arm every single teacher in the country.
No, not at all.
We need to have a more real solution to this issue.
You do. You need to have hardened build. We know that hardened buildings right away. We need cameras, and we need indicators. If someone says that they're going to shoot up a school or shoot up anybody, and if law enforcement has a file on them, they need to go and do follow-up interviews. And I know resources are low right now, but you need to follow up on everything. We follow up any terrorist type event over the past 20 years. We always follow up on it.
Yeah.
How do we don't treat it the same way?
Exactly. We need to consider this as an act of terrorism of somehow because it's going viral. It's moving around. It's like a disease moving around. It's almost like cancer. And we want to get to the bottom line of it. The question remains, taking guns from people, is this the right thing to do? How did this person, I'm not sure if you're aware of the details, how did this person was able to get a gun?
Yeah, that's one thing I'd like to know too. Have they ever had any mental health counseling that would show up anywhere?
See, that's the thing. I couldn't see anything.
This form.
I couldn't see anything.
I just went and got a pistol the other day, and I had to fill out the forms. And one of the questions is like, have you ever been mentally incapacitated and stuff like that? How are you going to track that? And when it comes to guns, I'm very pro 2A. I'm very pro responsible gun ownership.
Yeah.
But how'd this kid get the guns? And where did he get the money to get these guns? From what I understand, they were Daniel Defense, like $4,000 worth of guns.
Yeah, and that's what I think we need to know, man. And I think the only reason this is happening is because people are politicizing this. Is because either side is pulling for their own interest, for their own opinion and their own interest, is so ignorant not to take a look at the real problem and fix it. If this kid got a gun...
This isn't the first time.
This is not the first time, yeah.
And it's not going to be the last.
It's not going to be the last.
We stood up the whole Transportation Security Administration protective arm based on hijackers on 9/11. For 20 years, we've been supporting them, 21 years. Why aren't we doing the same thing with schools? It's an active problem. And it's been an active problem for even longer than 9/11.
And we have
Are we
nothing.
the only one? I mean, we're not the only ones that are not politicizing this. Listen, you could half the side says take away every gun ever, which there's 80 something billion guns in the country. You can't do it. And the truth is, bad people will still have access to guns. Always will. Never going away. And the other side's like, everybody should have a gun, like a baby. It's
Yeah.
like, but that's what I mean about the extremes.
And that's
But
what you
there's
see.
a
And
lot
you're
of people
right.
like you and I that are right in the middle.
Yeah, and you're right.
If you stay away from social media, you're going to see a lot of people right in the middle.
True.
Hey, I don't believe in this. I don't believe in that. Hey, either do I.
It's true. And you're right. You put this right. If you stay away from social media, you'll see, you'll have more clarity to seeing solutions. Because in social media, you're either going to see either opinion in the left or right, and they're both not a solution. And I agree with you.
Think about 320 million people.
Yeah.
Let's say 200 something million are capable to look at their phones and TVs. If they're not old, they're not young, or whatever. Tucker Carlson has average viewer of what, 3 million?
Yeah.
The CNNs are like 900,000.
Yeah.
Social media, these people are getting 20, 30,000 likes or whatever out of 200 something million. So when you get away from the social media aspect and the fiery aspect of it,
Yeah.
because news, we've both been on the news how many times?
Yeah.
And all they want to use you for is a soundbite.
Yep. That's
and make
exactly
it,
what the news is all about.
Left or right.
Yeah.
That's why I don't do
You're
it
right.
anymore.
Yeah, and you're right. Me too. I stopped doing it because it's all about the statements, the powerful statements you're going to drop down in these shows. And that's what it is, whether it's Fox, whether it's NBC, wherever you go, it's all about the drop downs with the music at the end. It's not a real solution. They are going to manipulate your opinion and your feelings to get their views. And kids are going to die, and we're not doing anything real about it. And do I believe that everybody should lose their gun? No, I don't believe that. It's the 100% major issue. I believe guns should be controlled where people have to have a background check. They have to be old enough, and it has to be a process. And if you're a guy that have not done anything wrong in your life, you are a responsible gun owner, we should not be going hard of you because you're not the target.
No, they're going hard on everybody right now. And there is no solution doing that. Nothing will happen. No law will get passed unless you find a solution. You need to harden these targets. They are targets. They're always going to be targets. The most vulnerable people in our country are always the targets. In the criminal world, everybody targets the easy target. You're walking on the road and you got your eyes scanning, you know what's going on. Nobody's going to bother you. They're looking for that person whose eyes down in their phone, not worrying about if they care in the world, and then they're going to attack. We got to start treating our children as our most precious commodity that they are. And that means harden them up and not taking, like I give the analogy of this damn crosswalk, and not taking 2 years before and 2 years after to do it. Do it now and fix it.
And what do you think about what are the solutions? Do you think we should secure every single window in the school and have a resource officer right in the front, which basically an armed guard in the front, and have one entry point? Do you think that will really limit the issue?
I think you need at least two SROs, and they don't have to be, name them what you want, make sure they're trained. That's what they do. And they're roving patrols. They have, give them another tertiary job, not just, hey, maybe they're teach kids about something else or something. Give them like something to do other than just protecting that area. You know what I mean? Because, idle hands, you're just going to be hiring a security guard doesn't work. They have to have some sort of tertiary thing to make them feel like they're actually doing something. Think about all the air marshals we hired. Post 9/11, when I left the Border Patrol, it was post 9/11.
Yeah.
and I was going to become a special agent. When I left, everybody was leaving the Border Patrol to go become an air marshal because they're like, hey, it's a better job, better pay.
Yeah.
And I remember turning in my ASP, and it was a whole box of them, and all these Border Patrol guys were leaving left and right. And it was like, we hired that many people to fly in so many domestic and international planes overnight, it seemed. They did it. They streamlined the hiring process. Hey, the Southwest border was going nuts. When I went through the Border Patrol, it was a 3-day process. And then I did the background, took a few months. Do the same thing now. If you want to make it federal, make it federal. But you're going to have to do something. And I don't think a federal agency will work because we know TSA doesn't work.
Is the U.S.
do something at the...
Jason, is the U.S. government not capable of having a budget to protect schools?
Yeah, we just sent $40 billion to Ukraine. We have the budget.
So basically, we can create a budget. It's just that these politicians are not doing it.
Yeah, that's what Congress is for. That's what I mean. Nothing can get passed to affect this, to do anything. You can't just sign an executive order. It won't work. So take the federal government out of it and start looking at it at the local level. I don't have any problem at all, my taxes going towards something like that. And start at the local level. I'm going to talk about this damn crosswalk until I'm blue in the face, but I started writing everywhere. Yeah. And I'm going to continue.
Yeah.
Start with your local politician. You know what I'm going to do when we get off here?
Yeah.
I'm going to go and I'm going to write a letter to my local politician and say, what are we doing to harden our schools?
Yeah.
I'm going to CC the superintendent of the schools for Fairfax County, Virginia. I'm going to get a hold of everybody in this district around here, not just my school. And I'm going to say, what are we doing to protect our kids? Start at the local level. It's your responsibility.
This is something interesting you brought in. Something interesting you brought in. I pick up my daughter all the time because I take her to horse lessons and doing things. And today, the school, one of the biggest steps they took today, just right after the school shooting, was saying that we're going to start IDing people now. Okay. I mean, you should be doing that anyway.
Yeah.
Is this something going to protect kids from an attacker? No, absolutely not. This is not a serious step, and you should be IDing people anyway. That's not what I want. Do you have the resources to protect my child if there was an active shooter in your school? And that's what scares me, is that these educators and the people in charge and the state are people who are really not smart thinkers. They are not smart thinkers. They just don't use their brain. They don't use their brain. They're more worried about everything else than protecting the schools. And I feel for the average American that's sending their child every single day, getting on the bus. I feel them. I feel that this is a threat. This is a serious threat, and we're not doing anything about it.
I'm going to do exactly that tonight, and I want you to do the same thing. Let's write our local politicians and our local superintendents, these school councils and everything, and say, hey, what are you doing to adequately protect our children? And just say that. No politics aside, what are you doing? And see what kind of steps they come back with.
And that's what I honestly, I'll be honest with you. I think they will answer you with a bunch of political horseshit, and they will not take actions.
And then you just keep going higher.
And that's what I think. I think the politicians, man, took advantage of this. You saw what happened in Texas. Like, I am not really taking any political sides. I believe in my heart that both political sides are being morons about this particular case. They are taking sides and they're not really taking real actions. However, like, you saw what happened in Texas with Beto all jumping all the way around. And I kind of felt that was disgusting, man. I felt that was jumping on the top of the lives of kids that just died. And you're just trying to get your popularity as a politician. I'm done with politicians in general.
So am I.
I think
most of us are.
And I think that was a show. That was nothing but a show. We all have kids. We all worried about our kids. But I am tired of politicians jumping in the front of the line and taking the mic. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it, man. I need a real
I'm watching
parent.
the news today.
Yeah.
Meghan Markle's there. What is she doing there? Everybody's jumping on this bandwagon.
Yeah.
Listen, you can get your 15 minutes of fame, your 5 minutes of glory. Get away from it and come up with solutions. I don't want to hear politicians lip service. They lip service everything.
Yeah.
You look at their Twitter feeds. It's always something about complaining about the other side. And I'm always like, fix it.
And you're right. Like, what do I care about a celebrity visiting the place? I need to know what solutions are going to be taken to do this. And without taking advantage of to get back on at the other side of the aisle. And that's what I see. I see that one side wants to get back on the other side and they take advantage of it, saying, look, that person is wrong. And this finger pointing is what got us to this place. And this finger pointing, we had two hardcores, very far people. And you're right. You actually put the statistics on who these people are in this country. And there's not a lot of them. It is really a couple millions of a crazy people on either side. They're on social media. They're pushing for this agenda. It's the same individuals Russia was able to hack to use them as a propaganda tools. And it just, I am tired of men going like with it. And I talk and people think that you really just on the other side of the aisle, because if you say if you disagree, you get accused, you get a political assassination where they're going to say, well, you're on the other side. If you say, hey, I need guns to be legalized and I want guns to be controlled and I want the people to have a proper background check and all of us can have guns, no issues, they'll say, hey, you're a liberal. And if you say, look, I don't want to lose my gun. I don't want to give my gun away. They're going to accuse you of being a far right. So where do we go? Like, where do we go from here?
It's cancel culture. You can't say you're pro-gun and that you want background checks, universal background checks.
Yeah.
You can't, because it's so political. It's so hard to open your mouth up about anything.
But what is wrong with it, though?
When you talk.
Do you feel, as someone who's been in law enforcement, is there anything wrong with having a background check for someone who's getting a gun?
Well, it depends. I mean, what is the background check going to actually show? You know as well as I do.
Yeah.
Let's do the terrorist analogy.
Yeah.
If you've never been encountered by law enforcement, you've never been encountered by the IC, the intel community.
You're not going to have
either
any problem.
Foreign or domestic. You're not going to show up on any background check.
Yeah.
And even if someone does go around and does thorough interviews, for everybody that buys a gun, you can't. I mean, you go to your neighbor. There's millions of background checks going on all the time, and it's not working. It's not going to find what you really need to find.
I think this is turning into something else that Americans need a solution. Government is not capable of making a budget. They are capable of doing everything else. And I'm tired of politicians and celebrities taking the front line, man. And you're right. You actually made it this clear. Start at your local level. Start doing something about it yourself. Don't depend on the government, because the government will never do it.
Don't depend on social media. You want to get on there and you want to bitch and complain about something. If you're doing it on social media and not also doing it by getting a hold of someone local, then you're wrong. I tell everybody this whenever I talk about human trafficking and anything I talk about. I'm like, you have to start local.
Yeah.
Find something local. You can go federal. You can go all the way up the flagpole, but it's going to get lost in bureaucracy.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think that we need to start doing something locally. The state needs to come up with a budget. And this is what we need to start pressuring our state level government, that we need to have a budget. We don't mind paying extra money on our taxes to have people that are going to be there to protect our children. What is this going to be for every American citizen? $10 a month more? $10 a year? Yeah. What is this going to be? We're paying that in gas anyway.
In the meantime, deputize people.
Yeah.
Get people up there. Get former LEOs, former this, former that. Train them. Get them going and start hard on these things. And how many of us have taken that ATFP course that are certified, albeit it's been years?
Yeah.
Go up and hire people to go in and do threat assessments. How many schools have had a threat assessment? Every town almost has a elementary, a middle, and a high school, and if not, they're consolidated. Have someone do a threat assessment.
And what are your thoughts on law enforcement response to this? As yourself being a law enforcement officer, do you feel that the law enforcement are responding to school shootings properly?
I need to know exactly what happened in Texas. I don't know if people in our hallway, but you should not have people standing idly by. If there's a shooter in a school, you go in, you got to do what you got to do, and you got to take out that threat. You do not let them take hostages. This isn't the 1970s, 1980s, or 1990s anymore. We know what happens when someone has guns in schools, and they've already been engaging.
And I think we need to start training. We need to start actually training law enforcement how to respond this faster than anything. It's all about timing. Those who's been in the military understands that when you have a target, an active shooter, that you need to eliminate that target immediately, most efficiently, without injuring anybody, doing it the right way. And this is not a hard thing. We done this after 9/11. It's not rocket science to establish a training course where every law enforcement officer or every school resource officer or school security guard or whatever it takes to do this job. And instead of talking about whether teachers should all have guns or not have guns at all. And you're right. I mean, somehow we just need to protect the schools. We need to protect the surroundings of the schools. Like an example, the school where my child goes to school, the playgrounds were very open area. It was open to the main road. Somebody could get drunk and drive through the road. So I actually went to the school and I said, hey, why don't you guys put a fence around the playground? Because it's open to the main road. And just months prior to me actually going to talk to them about that, some old man had a heart attack and the car just drove right by the school. So the possibility of things that are happening, there is no first protection concern from the schools that you need to put the money where it needs to be. We need to build proper security around the schools. So when you mentioned earlier about protecting the windows, what exactly are you talking about when protecting windows? Because you could actually have guards at the front gate. If the windows are still glass, anybody could just blow up a window and go through. So
Yeah.
what do we do there?
It's about time. 3M makes these awesome blast-proof window shielding. So if you put it on there, you literally have to beat it with a sledgehammer to get through it. You can shoot it all day long. It's not going to shatter. So what you do is you buy time for those resource officers to get there to engage the problem. And that's what I'm talking about, the first floor. If someone is dedicated to get on there, and you're also going to have other layers, you need to have cameras.
Yeah.
And you need to be monitoring. And it doesn't have to be an armed person monitoring. It could be someone sitting at the front desk.
Yeah.
Monitors the cameras here and there. But you have to harden these windows.
Yeah.
And you have to make it so you can't just pop them open. You can't prop open doors. If you leave a door open for a long time, the alarm has to go off. Anything to keep that one entryway where you'd have to enter. And then you would have to harden every door to make sure you can't just jack it with a crowbar. Does it cost money? Yeah. But we have to take the mentality that it's not going to happen to me. Because this is Texas.
Yeah.
Who would have thought an active shooter would have hit that school?
Yeah. And today, it's got me interested. There's a page on Facebook that actually it's like in the Democratic aisle kind of the politics, and they have posted and they were actually mocking and making fun of people of Texas. And I asked the question, and this is just how I think people have gotten so dumb, Jason, like to a point. I feel like this is not the world that I live in anymore. I asked the question, I said, what does this have to be with the people of Texas? They said, and I saw someone said actually that, the tough Texas gun touting guy was scared to make a move. And I'm kind of afraid that this was a way to mock the law enforcement. Where do these stories come from? So my question was, is this information accurate? Did the
That is
officers do their
exactly what
job
I
or
wanna
not do
know.
their job? And that's my
Is this
question.
information warfare right now?
Yeah.
Is this just trying to make law enforcement look bad?
Yeah.
Or were they really hesitant?
Yeah.
Or were there people inside engaging the shooter? I don't know. And that's the thing is like, I mean, think about anytime, geez, who's the girl that got ambushed in Iraq and she became a POW?
Jessica
Lynch.
Jessica Lynch. Yep.
When the stories first came about Jessica Lynch, it was that she was the sole survivor, emptying her mags,
Yeah.
taking out people left and right. And the reality was she wasn't.
Yeah.
Her gun jammed and she got hurt.
Yeah.
And that is right now where everybody's looking for any piece of information
To mark
and they
it
have
out
no
there.
idea what's going on.
And you're
I
right.
need a good after action review of this.
You're right. We're looking actually at information that is working for the political interest. It is not the true information. And what you need to do is you need to verify what the truth is. And we're sitting here talking about what every single person in their basement wrote an article about what really happened. I heard one of the stories was actually that the police officers were standing outside, not really taking any action. And I had a hard time to believe that, by the way. And I heard like
Me
one of the
too.
parents have said, give me the body armor, I'll go in. And this is all stories that the media have created. And the truth is, were these stories true? Who were these people that told these stories? And why are we telling stories to manipulate the political opinion versus actually worrying about the people that died? This is a lot of kids that died, and why we did not have an action taken. And by the way, what was the officer that actually shot the active shooter? Was he like
It was Border Patrol.
Border Patrol? So
Yeah, BORTAC, that's their special response team.
okay, so why the Border Patrol guy was there instead of the local police first?
They patrol that area. It's not that far from the border.
So
when you put out a call,
Yeah.
everybody responds.
everybody responds. So he
And that's
responded.
what I'm having a tough time. There are a lot of law enforcement. You can't have 100 enter the building.
Yeah.
So let's say 20 or 30 enter the building. You only have small hallways. And let's say 5 or 6 entered the building.
Yeah.
It's a two-way gun range at the point. Some people do have to do perimeter.
Yeah.
But I want to know what I need to know later on, after all the interviews are done with all the people that are involved with it, is what actually happened inside.
Yeah. That's
rather
the
than
most
dealing
important
with the
question.
social media.
I
Just
agree
like
with
you
you.
said, baby in a basement, typing up something. Information warfare. Now's the time for our enemies to come and start using information warfare on us. Sow the divide even more.
And this information warfare, basically, in this country right now, is getting the American citizen really not to know what really happened in that school shooting because it got politicized immediately. And now people are going back to the politics versus going back to the solution. And it just frustrates me, man. Like, would I care about my political opinion when it comes to my child security and safety while going to school to get their education? Why do we have to take sides? Why can't we really just come together and find a solution? If we need to make a budget, we need to make a budget. And instead of sitting that down there making stories, hearing all kind of different sides to the story that really didn't happen. The question is this country going to continue to deal with this, or are we going to find a solution to it? And do we think this is just a gun problem, or do we think there's more to that? Do we think there's mental health issues in this country? Why is this happening in the United States versus other countries? Why Israel is not having this issue? Why Iraq is not having this issue? Why is it happening here, Jason?
And that's one thing I would love to know. Is it an over-medicated society? Is it mental health? Is it this social media thing that's skewing people's thoughts, dehumanize people, where they can go in and kill 19, 20, 21 people? It's something broken out there, and we need to figure it out. That needs to be the other thing. Yes, we can harden the targets, but we also need to find out what the problem is. A gun is an inanimate object. What is going on?
And you're right.
I mean,
I heard he was using social media. He was on Facebook Live, streaming prior to the attack, saying that he was going to do what he was to do. And this is what got me really frustrated. Why Facebook does not have that alert when someone is on their own social media platform? Why Facebook doesn't have this kind of alert to inform the local authorities? This
Yeah.
guy, I mean, Facebook in particular have actually shut down a lot of people. They have censored a lot of people. They have the ability to see things immediately. I mean, sometimes you can say the wrong words on social media and they will not allow you by saying it. How come this person was live basically
Their name
stating
is
he was going to commit
Meta.
a crime and nothing happened?
their name is Meta. Metadata. They could listen. All they have to do is change the algorithm to pick up on any threat indicators. I'm sure they already know it. Have a button to contact local authorities. You know, when you report spam,
Yeah.
maybe, hey, report the local authorities ASAP. And yes, there's a lot of people that are going to report it, and that would have to be vetted. But still, have some sort of mechanism where you can report something. I think he was chatting from someone from overseas. But all of this is wherever you log into that Facebook. You ever log into Facebook from your PC or anywhere else and it says, you've
Yeah.
had an active login from this address. They know exactly where you are.
Yeah.
So there has to, it also does fall into social media, because how many of these active shooters have live streamed, have posted on social media?
A lot of them have.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them have, actually. I mean, most of the recent ones have used social media as a platform to announce their crime, to say what they're about to do. And it's scary. I mean, to the point that, not saying that it's their fault, right? Like, I'm not blaming social media platforms for all these problems.
Mm-hmm.
However, when it comes to hate speech, when it comes to things like the guy in Buffalo that went out and shot people, right?
Yep.
I would love to know, as a psyop expert, someone who spent years understanding how psychological warfare works, I would love to know about who are the people that inspired the active shooter in Buffalo. Who were the people he followed? Why did this happen? How do we limit these people from being on these platforms, from affecting society? Because look, social media is a weapon. Anybody can go right now, has the power, is smart enough, and it could be in a bad way, to manipulate the public opinion. And it happens. Our enemies use it against us. Everybody does it. But how do we control this craziness that's social media? I think this social media has a lot of positive things about it that worked for the American people and the rest of the world. It got us connected. We started talking to the people overseas. I personally talked to a lot of my friends overseas, uses social media. So I'm not saying social media is all negative, but how do we limit? Why are we limiting one side of the aisle in social media and saying, hey, you need to stop promoting hate speech, while we allow the other side to do basically the same?
It should be all hate speech.
Yeah. And
It
I
has to
agree.
be. And what's going on in these private groups? I mean, obviously, Facebook and everybody else knows exactly, everybody that owns these social media platforms knows what's going on their platforms. Nothing in there is really private.
Yeah. They know really everything that's happening inside. But I think, impersonally, do you think they really care more about the platform itself and not to go harsh on these users because they don't want to be in the front line?
Yeah, they don't want to. It's profits.
Yeah. No matter what it is, it's profiting the platform. So, I mean, to a point that, you worry, man. It's like on the local level, people need to do something, need to start doing something to protect children. I mean, you're talking today when you see that the husband of the teacher actually has just passed away on a heart attack.
Oh my gosh, I know.
I mean, you're talking about, this is a family of 4 kids that just lost two parents in the 24 hours. They just lost their mom and dad in just 24 hours, man. That's got to be tragic. That got to be life-changing to a lot of people. And at the same time, you get people that goes out there and say, look, man, Newtown never happened. I mean, you got to stop yourself at a certain point. when people are politicizing everything, people are so extreme, so pushing, they started saying, oh, Newtown didn't happen. I agree when they have to eliminate people off the platform. They have to eliminate people who actually create that kind of chaos. And we have
It's like 9/11 truthers.
exactly right. It just shocks me, bro. I mean, Jason, when I see people and they tell me they know something about 9/11, and here's my question to me. I mean, I'm sitting right here, and there's actually 9/11 hijackers right here behind me in my podcast, and I have and the picture behind me on the wall, and people says 9/11 was an inside job, and this is what, as a counterterrorism expert, this is what I'll ask the first question: do you know Nawaf al-Azmi? And they'll just look me in the eye with a dumb look. You don't know Nawaf al-Azmi, but you think 9/11 was an inside job. Well, you just made a big statement.
How about someone that's worked for the government for
yeah, and
20-something years?
It is, and it's just
Can anything like this be an inside job?
And that's the question, man. It's like when people say, oh, 9/11 was an inside job. Do you know Nawaf al-Azmi? No, I have no idea who that is. Well, that's one of the hijackers. How is it you don't know the hijacker himself, and you have no idea how long he's been training? You have no idea who he used to be. You have no idea what his background or bio is and what he had done most of his life. You don't know that, but you're underestimating it because the guy in the radio show or the TV show you listen to has made a statement, and he's no counterterrorism expert. He's never seen a terrorist. He never understands terrorism. And that's one thing that when we talk about the counterterrorism world, I have seen a lot more information about counterterrorism from podcasters than it is from counterterrorism experts.
Yeah.
And this was years of it, bro. I mean, we're talking, look, let's be honest. I'm a guy that was known to be whatever. I consider myself in the middle of the aisle, but we know for a fact someone was in Trump government, actually as a counterterrorism expert, was not a counterterrorism expert. He happened to be a phony radio host, and he was walked out of the White House, but he spent a year in there. So what? I mean, look, I am not.
There's some things that fake it till you make it don't work, and counterterrorism is one of them.
It doesn't work. It really doesn't work because you'll be in trouble when you really hire the wrong counterterrorism expert who has never seen a terrorist himself, but he talks about them. That is a very big difference. And that's one thing that I kind of noticed at the time. And I said, you know what? I'm a conservative guy. I thought whatever was Trump was doing a good job with the economy, blah, blah. But until I saw this guy specifically, man, that in the White House, and I just said, oh, shit, this is no joke. This guy doesn't know shit about counterterrorism. He's never been a counterterrorism agent. He's never been a police officer. He's never been part of law enforcement. And the same thing happened with Fox News. The guy was one of the most major shows for so many years as a CIA agent, former security consultant. And the biggest job the guy ever held was a security guard. Holy crap, bro.
There's a ton of those people out there. They were in the agency for 2 or 3 years, 4 years, and now, 20 years ago, now they're a security expert. Now they're like a top-of-the-line spy, and I'm like, you got to keep on top of your game.
And that's the truth. And you know what? I've seen the same thing with what's called security contractor, where a lot of people, he was in the CIA. No, he wasn't. He was a security contractor. He's not a CIA analyst. Do you know how long it takes for a CIA analyst to know their skills? It's a very long time, a lot of education. And I have seen a lot. Look, it's among the military community as well. A lot of special forces, Navy SEALs, whatever. We had all this thing coming up, former CIA, and people they know what they're talking about. Look, there's a big difference between a CIA analyst and a CIA contractor. And I've seen people come on big shows, talk about topics that they had no expertise on. And that's what really making the rest of the American people...
Look at the experts are going to pop up this next week.
Oh, yeah.
I'm an expert on a lot of things. Active shooters is not my actual expertise, but I know enough. I know enough about hardening facilities. I know enough about law enforcement. I know enough about this and that.
Yeah.
You're not going to see me on Fox News tomorrow or MSNBC or CNN.
Yeah.
But wait till you see these people popping up and look at their background and look at them, how they're going to make everybody fired up
Yeah.
whether it's take away every gun or this or that, or it's just this political machine drives me nuts. But let's start local. I'm going to write that letter tonight.
Yeah.
Email. And the cool thing is nowadays you don't have to write a letter. I'm dating myself again. I'm going to email them. Almost every politician has constituent services on their website, whether that's state, local, or federal. So you could either go to constituent service for your state congressman, state senator, or your federal congressman or federal senator, and do it, or do all four of them. Why not?
And you're right. Like, we need to come together in this. Republican, Democrats, whatever you are, you need to put your politics aside and need to understand what really is going to take to protect these children. Yes, we need security measures to be taken around the school, but in order for us to stop someone with an evil attempt, whether it has a gun, whether it has a bomb, whether it has whatever it has, we're going to need a gun to stop that person. And law enforcement, whether they do their job or not, whether they're fast enough or not, we need someone at the school, the bottom line, that is going to take actions when something happens. Someone who's done the training, who understands how fast they have to respond. And we all understand a fast response is what we need, and more accuracy. Someone who knows what they're doing. That's all we need. It's not really rocket science to protect our schools from something happening. And
Evil exists. It's not going away. And it's never going to go away.
It's not going to go away.
And it's going to happen again. You could look at Chicago. Yeah. Everybody always brings up Chicago. But look at almost every major city that has the strictest gun laws imaginable. And you're still going to have people getting killed every weekend, every day almost.
We're almost going to be turning our schools into like military checkpoints in the middle of the war zone. Yeah. That's our only solution. I almost looked at it. I was talking to a teacher today, and the teacher, I just said, look, truly you want to be protected? I got to put 10-foot T-wall, concrete walls all around your school and have one entry point and put something right above the wall where someone can't cross it. That's the only way that I can assure you a protection, because how else would we do it? I mean, would this affect the school? Would this affect the kids being in an inside environment, not able to see what's happening in the outside? I mean, there's going to be problems everywhere. Everyone is going to have a different opinion of things. People say, I don't want to show up to school with my kids and see someone carrying a gun. This is going to give kids the wrong idea. Honestly, I'd rather the kids have the wrong idea than kids dying. Mm-hmm. And I look at it in a way, this should not be something we have to worry about. We should have an armed person in the school. And as you said, is a perfect solution. We need to have two. God forbid if someone gets shot, there's a backup. God forbid if someone hesitates, there's another person. Having two is better than one. And it's not hard to do it. We gave so much money outside of the country. We can create a budget for it. We can create an agency that protects schools. I mean, yeah. Is it that hard to do? We can totally do it. And instead of we have two people in Texas are fighting to be who is going to be a governor, and they're taking advantage of that. And both of them, one is taking the NRA side, the other one is trying to get more popular using this thing. Pretty much, that's what I saw. Yeah, any decent human being out there with a human decency will notice that these are politicians are trying to get back at one another using this tragedy. Celebrities who are showing up at the school to pay their respect, fine. If you got some money in your pocket and you're an influencer and you have a lot of following, you know what? Pay some money to protect schools. Go talk to the government about creating a budget. I don't want to talk about the guns only. I want to talk about protecting the school and whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. And somehow protecting the school is going to involve a gun, whether you like it or not. So
it's the reality.
That's the reality. I mean, as you said it, taking the guns away from every single person in the United States is not going to prevent someone from doing something bad. A person does not even have to own a gun. A person can go and make a homemade bomb and attack the school. How are we going to stop this person? It's going to go back to we need a real solution versus a political win. And the thing that's the problem we're having in this country is that our politicians are more interested in a political win versus a solution to protect our school.
I agree. And I think it's time for you to come on the Protectors podcast.
I already
Yeah.
been there, wasn't I?
It's been a while, man.
Yeah, I know. I was
more
like,
polished now.
I know I've been on your show a couple years ago. I would say, yeah, a couple
I
years
think
at
it's been
least.
a couple years.
I mean, yeah, man. I really feel like, I just been kind of distancing myself for the last year from the politics. I done what I did in my life, man. What I did is counterterrorism. What I did is something for the interests of the United States and the American people. I wasn't doing this for one side of the political aisle. And just in the last 2 years, I kind of try to distance myself from media, from all this bitterness, from all this.
That's why you're going to come on a show and talk about starting a podcast and all the other good stuff. Something that's outside of both of our.
It is. And I think really
purview.
For me is I want to remain with my message that to be outside of the box and to be neutral, man. I don't want to, I want the people to learn something positive from my experience or learn something positive from what I have to share with them and not promote something that's going to affect somebody. And that's what scares me is that now with social media and everything that's going around, hate speech seems to be selling big time. And politicizing tragedies seems to be selling. And I think we're having a culture problem and a big culture issue right now in the United States that we need to go back to the basics. And I meant to also ask you before we close this, did you see the shooter? Did you see a picture of the Texas school shooter?
Yeah.
Like, help me understand. I'm a Middle Eastern man that was an immigrant in this country. And what was I looking at? What do we see there? I mean, I try to search a little bit more about information. I try to find like an accurate sources. Was this kid bullied? What was the problem with this kid?
What's the underlying factors? I don't know. I saw the pictures. I don't know if they were photoshopped or if they're real or what.
Yeah.
I haven't seen today. So,
I mean, yeah, I've seen a couple of photos and I wasn't sure if there was a mental illness. Is there where just satanic kind of personality behind this?
Yeah, I don't know.
Which groups was he chatting at? What are these groups? How are these groups forming? I think someone who have experience needs to collect data and information, real information about these shootings and have a comparison between the personalities of the shooters. There has to be a common denominator right there between all shooters. There has to be a common motive that between all these shooters. And it has to be.
I think that's what we're both saying is there has to be more than just hardening. You got to find out what these underlying causes are.
Because that's the problem. You have one side saying it's a gun problem. You have another side saying it's not a gun problem. It's not a complete. Everybody needs to have a gun. Well, we don't live in a combat zone where everybody needs to have a gun. We're not in Israel, guys. But if somebody wants to carry a gun, by all means, they should have the choice. It should be by choice. But when you go back to this, I think personally, away from the politics, that there is more to this. There's more data that's not being shared with us because of this political bitterness in between people in the United States. There's more data about what is the true cause of people all of a sudden just come out of nowhere and decide that I'm just going to go shoot kids.
Yeah.
It has to be a cause. It has to be a reason why this is happening in this country. And whether it's medication, whether it has to be, man. I recently did a TBI treatment for my brain from being blown up in Iraq. And I learned so much about my brain, about my hormones, about everything. And I have found out that some medications has a huge effects on your life and your personality, on everything you do. Why are we not sharing this data? Do you think there are people that don't want data like that to get out? Do you think that there are people who have an interest in this, that they don't want this to be their problem? They want this to just get politicized and just get blame on one another.
A lot of it's, they just want to use it as talking points. Everything is a talking point.
Everything is a title.
Title and a talking point.
and
Yep.
abuse. And I think that's really what the problem is everything is a title and abuse. And you're right. You brought great points today in this podcast. And I can't thank you enough for being with us today, Jason. I know this was a last minute. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope today podcast was exceptional. We kind of got Jason last minute. And again, as he said, start at the local level, start talking to your politicians, start doing something about this. You don't have to depend on the government. Do whatever it takes to protect your kids. And even if it goes against your political opinion. Again, this is the Black Side Show. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in the next episode.